Welcome to 5-Star Weekly. What is defense? Can we weather the storm with a tough test next? We get into all that and more coming up. Before we get into it, become part of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button on YouTube. Welcome to the show, 5-Star fam. I'm AJ, and this is Michael. And yes, we unfortunately lost 2-0 to Charlotte, and it was not the best away day for most people, unfortunately. But yeah, before we get into all that, let's give some shouts out to our loyal Patreon fam. You guys know who you are, but we're gonna shout you out anyway. Gavin, Jordan, Niall, Andrew, Chris, Nick, Jeff. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. But yes, as well, some more housekeeping. If you've already gotten in on the Atlanta United Fan TV MLS 2025 table prediction contest, yeah, it will be locked in after week 3. So now is pretty much the time. Get in there. Some fun, cool prizes for the top 3. What's that? What's the thing? What's the big thing? The big case.
I'll show it to you. Hold on.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, feel free to share it with your friends and all that.
Let's do some show and tell, enticing everyone real quick.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's
an official Man United.
Yeah, it's a little Pelican box.
Box of sorts, which has a stereo system to it. It's Mercedes-Benz here. A little bit interface with volume up and down, power. And it's like a strong lockbox too. It's called a genuine Pelican case. So these things, I believe, I looked them up, retail for like $125. So you can count yourself among the lucky few to have an official Atlanta United branded Pelican case if you come in first place in the competition.
Exactly. So, yeah, you just show a little bit of know-how, or you can luck into it. I mean, some people have as well. It's really, yeah, it's just all for the fun of it. But get in there. But yes, let's get to the match review, and this is sponsored by Rowdy Peach IPA. That's by Sweetwater, and yes, it is the official craft beer of Atlanta United Fan TV. So yeah, we've had the privilege of drinking it at tailgates. It is very delicious, and yeah, definitely get some from your local provider. But yes, as well, yeah, drink good beer with good friends. Indeed. Love it. But anyway, so yeah, it wasn't the best away day, like we mentioned. It was a scoreless first half against Charlotte. We actually probably, well, had the better first half, I would say. It was maybe not, the most clinical for a lot of reasons. But yeah, it was also Charlotte. They knew exactly what to do. That's how you stymie a team like us, is you sit back and you essentially, you take up all the space in the box. We were still kind of, playing, I think, pretty decently. And Miggy had some chances where, unfortunately, I think the angle got cut off. And then he had to, unfortunately, shoot from a kind of worse angle. And so, it's one of those things where in the past, in 2017, 2018, he was one of those players that had some of the most shots on the team. And, obviously maybe not, 20 goal type of player, but, he got double digits. So that Miggy's going to shoot. And, that's not the worst thing, I think. You need to shoot in the box, and hey, I think he has proven to, I think, eventually get some goals in, and it's not the worst thing as well if it ricochets, it rebounds, somebody else can grab it and put it in the back of the net. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case in this match. But yeah, it basically was in the second half where it was pretty much the early moments of the second half. But before we get into the goals, Mike, you saw the match. What were your thoughts?
The first half, we were unlucky to not have scored. We outshot them like 10-2. Our chances were far bigger and more threatening. They looked dangerous. We were asking a lot of questions. Their goalkeeper came up huge multiple times. I mean, he is one of the best goalkeepers in the league. I think he was goalkeeper of the year last year. And Charlotte's defense is one of the best in the league. It was one of the best, if not the best, last season, and it continues to be very good. We had them in trouble and in fits for the entirety of the first half with our attack. That goes to show how good our attack is, being able to put one of the best, most disciplined defenses on their heels like that. Now, like I said, it was unfortunate that we didn't find the back of the net, but I think that you run this game back, a couple more times, we actually score in that first half. And I think that changes the complexion of the game considerably. That forces Charlotte to come out now, play differently. They don't make adjustments like they did in the second half to unwind us and figure us out. They have to kind of play the way we want them to. We can dictate the match. That didn't happen, unfortunately. It kind of happened in the reverse because we just weren't, like you said, clinical. But I think based on the quality of our attacking pieces, that will not be a common occurrence for us in this season. I don't think we'll find ourselves to be, dominating a first half and just constantly coming up with 0 goals against most teams in the MLS. It happens sometimes. I think it just happened to happen this game, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily super common. I think our attack can only get better, and I think it will gel more, and you'll see far less shutout games against us.
Yeah, and it's a bit of that where I think if we had scored, it would have been a different complexion to the game. The game state doesn't matter, as we all know. The difficulty going into the match was even more so that 3 fullbacks were out. And that, I think, was a big factor in this. Luis Abram had to start at left back. Matt Edwards started at right back, of course. And we had Dominique Chonky off of the bench later on. But the difficulty was, I think, the adjustments made at the half. Because the first half, Edwards was dealing with Wilfried Zaha pretty well. Even so much so, rather, that Zaha pushed Edwards on the byline because he was getting frustrated. But, when you have Dean Smith, a very, very good coach, he's going to find adjustments, and that they did. They realized probably what was needed to happen, which was, you attack the wings. You attack the fullbacks that are not as, one, experienced or maybe fleet of foot in Abram. And, you can cause some damage, and that they did. They started attacking out wide a lot more, stretched us thin, and inside the box, that's really where, it's just, these counterattacks were brutal to see, because it is almost too easy the way they slice this open, and a little bit naive the way that we defended. But when you pretty much, it's just not the when you don't have your first choice, there's just so many problems that it can arise. And then as well, Mateusz Klich not in the midfield, that kind of disallowed us some of the continuity of match day 1, but also the splitting the lines of passes, the metronomic ability of Klich as well. It just made it tough. Like, you didn't have the shielding of the defense with just being able to have the ball and basically have it be away from the opposition. And so, these goals, the first one is just like, they timed it perfectly. It's a great counterattack from Charlotte, to be fair, and they were very clinical. But man, it's just a bit of it where, the positioning just feels just a little too close together, a little too at points where it's, and then stretched to a degree. It's a catch-22 of it in my eyes. But yeah, as far as the goals that we conceded, like what did you feel about how we conceded these goals?
Yeah, two things. First thing, I'll be remiss to not talk really quick about Edwards getting pushed by Zaha, and he very quickly turning around and bumping chests with him. Reminds me of a very young Caleb Wiley as well, who did not stand for getting pushed around by, top level elite talent, not backing down from challenges like that. That was great to see, very much in the shoes of Caleb and that energy of Caleb. So I love seeing that from Edwards. That was a great impression he left on me there. Unfortunately, the second half did not leave a great impression on me with him, which led to one of the goals. But the thing is, and I think we need to call a spade, there's a few things here, but the first thing I think we need to talk about is that these goals weren't necessarily like, yes, the way that they grew or were built up to a goal with the long balls and trying to stretch us and trying to work our fullbacks is intentional, but the mistakes the defenders made I don't think were intentional and or were things that Charlotte can necessarily rely upon every time to beat us. I think that those were kind of fluky. Misreading bounces, misreading balls, like miscalculations. I don't think that Edwards does that all the time. I don't think our defenders make these kinds of silly mistakes all the time. I think that that doesn't happen most games. It's unfortunate it happened in this game, and that bounce that just kind of really screwed us up and gave them a goal in the beginning of the second half really kind of put us out of sorts. And kind of unwound us. So like that doesn't happen, that silly mistake there, and we score one like we probably should have in the first half. This game is completely different, but it was kind of a culmination of bad things that happened. And like you said, we did not have our starting 11, right? We had Edwards in, who is despite the flub in the second half, he had an amazing first half. No one can really expect this kid to maintain that level of play, especially against Zaha, the entirety of 90 minutes. I just don't think that's reasonable to expect that of him. So considering what has happened and the position he was put into based on us not having our proper starting 11, I think he did a good job, and conceding one goal on a mistake like that, it's unfortunate, but I don't think Atlanta United, when we have a starting 11 that our ideal starting 11, I don't think we do that, and I don't think Charlotte scores that goal, and I think this game looks considerably different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bounce is definitely incredibly unlucky. Apparently, there was a lot of wind in the stadium, but they were able to take advantage of it, and that's really where.
And then Brad's deflection too, like that's kind of silly as well. Like he could have done a little bit better with that. He doesn't do that all the time. I think what's the likelihood that you give Brad that same kind of situation 10 times, maybe one or twice out of the 10 times he parries it literally directly to their striker? I don't think that happens the most or the majority of times. It's just unfortunate that those two situations happen to us in that game.
Right, and it seems like it's always the back post where it's people are not marking where they need to be, and people fall asleep, and I think that's really it's positioning. It comes down to positioning. It comes down to players knowing where they need to be, sensing the danger, and unfortunately, with a makeshift defense, it's not really going to always be that they're in sync. That they, especially with Edwards, knowing where he needs to be. And I think far better defenders have struggled against Wilfried Zaha. So it is definitely one of those things where
I don't blame him. Yeah,
we're far more experienced, rather.
Exactly. And also, what you said, it comes down to like positioning and like switching off and, concentration and things like that. I mean, this, to me, that screams mentality. And we have a mentality issue. Ronny identified it in the press conference after the game. And Doug brought it up, in the press conference, asking him, this is something we saw all last year. Teams switching off at random times, or not exactly random, after the start of the second half. Seems to be something that always seems to happen, right? That the team kind of comes out sleepy and we get dinged for it. So Ronny said he's going to try and root that out and figure it out. Also kind of downplaying that that's actually what happened. But I think we all see that is something that is still plaguing us and is a concern. So, I mean, we'll get into some of the quotes and things that are talked about the training that happened this week in preparation for Red Bull regarding some of the corrections that Ronny is trying to make so these types of things don't happen again. And that kind of indicates that he does identify that mentality issue and that it is here and it is a thing, and he is wrestling with it, and the team is wrestling with it, and hopefully they can get that figured out.
Yeah. And it's a part of it is also where, for this match, our heads dropped, basically, in a few minutes, completely undone. And, that's the difference. And it's tough. It's like in MLS, you just can't switch off like that and, expect to win away matches, really. Maybe at home you can maybe deal with it a little bit better, but yeah, you don't. Even
and you have Edwin Mascara come bail you out,
right? And that as well. But it's as the away contingent was pretty big, but still, you're still not in terms of being able to out noise the home crowd when it's their home opener as well. It's just very tough. But speaking of Ronny Deila and what he mentioned, he said after the match, as a group, we have to learn from these kinds of experiences. We've gone 6 games dating back to preseason without losing. Now we lose, and we don't like to do that, especially this way, because we were very even with them, maybe even better than them in the first half. Then they win. They deserve to win in the end because of what happened in the second. Exactly. And that's really the difficulty here, where, Atl United, I think, as far as the first match, it could have been a different story. This match also could have been a different story as well if, players were more clinical, because CF Montreal, they hit the crossbar at the very last play, essentially. Like, it's just one of these things where, these margins are tiny. And unfortunately, Atl United were not, again, able to be clinical in this match. But let's wrap it up. But we, of course, will be playing at the New York Red Bulls on Saturday, and we'll have that preview later on for you in this episode. But let's get into the news. And Dominique Chonky, he made his MLS debut at 17. He's the 3rd youngest player to play for Atl United, for the first team. And so, yes, absolutely just big plaudits to Chonky for, very tender age. He doesn't look 17, at least, physically wise. Face wise, yes, for sure. Looks 17 years old. But, I remember the preseason match against Chattanooga where, the crowd, I remember a fan around me, he was like, how old is that guy? And it's like, I'm like, he's 17. It's, you can see it. But body-wise and the way he plays with the poise, definitely doesn't look like it. But, next bit of news, Ronny Deila, he said, let's see. As far as the most concerning part of the match in the, as part of the second half, when the team went down 1-0, lost organization, and many went into their shells, quote unquote. And he said, we have to find out what's going on. It can't be fatigue, end quote. So, exactly what you're saying, Mike. It's definitely not fatigue. It's what happened was at the start of the second half. It's definitely, I think, a mentality thing, like you're mentioning. Like, you just cannot drop your heads and allow a second in such quick succession. But you obviously probably had some thoughts about what he said here.
Yeah, like just pretty much what I said earlier. It is, to me, it seems to be diagnosed as a mentality issue because it harkens back to what happened previous seasons when you see whenever there's a restart, like either from dead ball situations from the beginning of a game, from the beginning of a second half start, the team seems to be cold or sleepy, and it takes them a little bit to grow into things. When they do, they can play pretty well. They can hang with the best of them, but that's when they get hurt, is in those moments, in that downtime. They don't switch on, they switch off, and they get dinged. And we would hope with, quite a new smattering of players that kind of mentality would have left, and now we have new mentality. But it seems like that specter is still around haunting us. So Ronnie's going to have to figure out how to deal with it. I did see Tyler from Scarf and Spikes had seen in the training ground. Ronnie, what he said was, in Tyler's words, he described it as holding the players to a higher standard in comparison to what Gonzalo Pineda held them to. Like, kind of, not necessarily like chewing them out more, but pointing out individual errors and telling players, like, you are the one that was responsible for X, Y, and Z and needs to be amended and fixed. He also Tyler described the training sessions with more complexity and intentionality than in the last seasons with Pineda. He also believes that the players felt more fulfilled with these exercises as well. Additionally, it's Tyler's opinion that Ronnie is better at handling the team in general than Pineda was. Like I said, with holding players accountable and not just letting his assistants, take on things, but like him running the whole thing and getting big and loud, and not just having other assistant coaches like Rob, who was big and loud, to do that for him. So, he's known for the Ronnie roar. He's probably got a loud voice, so that's probably where that comes from, because, Gonzalo was very kind of like a soft-spoken guy, and a player's coach. So this seems to be more along the other end of things. So, and also Tyler used the word more organized, the training sessions, than they were under Pineda. So take that what you will from that. But I find that fascinating and interesting in terms of his observations of the most recent training sessions.
Yeah, and that commiserates as well. Not commiserates. It commensurates. Commensurates, I guess, is the word maybe I'm looking for. Maybe with Derek Williams. Maybe I'm using it incorrectly, but either way, you guys might know what I mean. Either way, Derek Williams said about Ronny Deila.
Corroborates, I think is what you're thinking.
Maybe we could say corroborates, sure, yeah. Or is commensurate with what?
Commensurate
Williams.
With, yeah, okay.
Yes, there we go. We've got some grammar lessons here, but basically, quote, a massive positive is the manager's not afraid to tell anyone anything. I've worked with managers before, hesitant to shout at a DP or someone. Not this manager. It's refreshing to see because we're all one unit. And that's exactly it. Like, I appreciate that type of leadership. You call out who needs to be called out. There is no special treatment. If there's special treatment, that means that some person is going to get some privileges that other people don't. And with that, people are going to be resentful. And when there's resentment, that's when people's heads drop. That's when they're like, why is that fair? That doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so everyone should be held to the same regard, to the same harshness if it needs to be, and to the same praise as well. So, but yeah, I love that. And yeah, hopefully that does yield results when we have a tough moment like this. So
we'll see, because we know we're probably going to get dinged by Red Bull. So it'll be interesting to see how we handle that going forward.
Indeed. But yeah, guys, that is the news. Real brief segment there this week. But let's get into the mailbag. You guys send in these questions through Discord and IG story. Please continue to do so, and we might answer your question in the future. But the first question, let's see. There's some interesting questions, I think, this week. But Tortured Caffeine Fan asks, what is love? On a serious note, if we can't win a single trophy this season, should we just sell the team? Gotta love a very measured take there. Yep. Let's answer what is love first.
What is love? Yeah, what love is an amorphous feeling subjectively that you can ascribe whatever you want to it. So, define it the way you will.
Was not really expecting that deep,
It's not deep. I basically just said it's whatever you want it to be.
Right. But it is kind of deep. Basically, whatever you want it to be. It is. Yeah. Like, you can love anything. And that's, I think, the beauty of it is anybody can, find something that they find a lot of joy in. And then, put a what do you call it? Put some importance to it, I suppose, and make it something that's whether it's limerence or something else like that on that. But yes, we can't win a single trophy. Yeah, we should totally just sell the team. All right, let's move on. Yeah, Arthur Blank, just pack up shop. Just the U.S. soccer stuff. Also, just sell that.
The experiment is over.
Exactly.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, just move it to LA, sell Home Depot as well, and, just...
yeah, right. It causes him to just completely sell all of his other companies. And
his other assets, yeah. Anyway, next question comes from Zilf. Is it too early to worry about the defense? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because like we talked about, this wasn't our ideal starting 11 for especially on defense. So I think if this kind of thing occurred, these semi-silly mistakes that led to goals occurred under, we having Brooks Lennon, we having Pedro Amador, we having Mateus Klick, I think that would be wildly concerning, and it happens more than once, especially back to back. I would be like, and especially at home, that's when I'd be like, alarm bells are ringing. There's something broken here. But I haven't seen that yet, and I don't have any reason to believe I will see that with that ideal starting 11. So, yeah.
I mean, I agree. It's one of those things where, the starting 11 still has issues at times, but it's way more solid, I think. And then plus you get way more service as well from the fullbacks, and I think that should settle the back four as a whole, and kind of make it I think a lot less of a worry.
Yeah.
But Marv the Electrocuted asks in almost conjunction, any hypotheses on why we keep seeing the same defensive problems of the last few seasons with a different coach? It's seriously getting annoying. We kind of touched it on earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes it has a little bit to do with this too, that we've talked about this before. The way we play, or at least we want to play, with high flying fullbacks and forcing a lot of our players up, so then it's hard to get back in time to handle counterattacks, specifically out wide. I mean, that's a feature, not a bug, of how we're playing. So that is, unless we have an absolutely elite defense, that's kind of something you're going to just have to come to expect, that we're going to get hit on that once in a while. That's if Atlanta United loses games, it's likely how that's going to happen. So come to expect it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of it, is where maybe there is a defensive setup where there's possibly a box midfield, not midfield, but a box from midfield and in defense. So at least 4 players kind of always back, and then the rest, sure, they can go forward. But there is a naivete to the way we're playing where, yes, you're kind of relying on Stian Gregerson to essentially be your safety valve. And yeah, he's proven that he can at times, but he, at times as well, has been outmuscled by really, really strong players. And so that's kind of a little bit part of it. But if you can keep 4 players back to a sense and keep them in the middle, yeah, you might have the wings pretty much get attacked, but they still have to come. They still have to come centrally. So that's where you can really, at least from that end, control them, shepherd them where you want them to be. But that's the question. Who's the fourth player? Because we know it's Sleesh, we know it's Williams, we know it's Gregerson, but who is that fourth player that's going to stay back? Is it going to be a fullback? Is it going to be Click? I mean, yeah, it's not going to be anybody else. So,
we need those guys in attack. We clearly, that's what we want to do, is attack like crazy. And so that's the gamble you play when you run your team in that way. Now, maybe you could say Ronny needs to identify situations or game states where perhaps not playing that way is beneficial, or the better, the more prudent way to go, and maybe being more defensively minded. Now, in this last game, I'm not sure that'd be smart, because if we try and just park the bus against Charlotte with a makeshift defense, that might not end up going well for us. I think he thought, we have a high-powered attack. Maybe we can just try and make this into a shootout, and hopefully we can, nick a point or two or three or whatever out of these guys from just kind of goal as long as we can. But unfortunately, that part never happened. So Charlotte ended up getting the 2 goals. So it's I don't know. I don't think that probably would have been a better idea for this game. I think also it would have looked weak if we had, really sat back and then just kind of got pummeled away. I don't know if with the makeshift defense, I don't know if that would have been the right idea. So I think he made the right idea, but this was kind of always going to happen, and he just hoped we would score enough that it wouldn't be that bad, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, because it's the Charlotte's defense is good, but we did expose some aspects of it. We just were not clinical. And so the mindset was right. The tactics were right. It's just execution. And ultimately, that's not on Deila. So, that's on the players. And, yeah, he can't force the players to score. He can't, make them be clinical. He can train them. But, ultimately, I think it's a... we have to chalk it up. It's the first away match of the season, and there's some forgiveness
against a quality opponent too.
Exactly.
They had every reason to win that game as well. We were weakened. They were surging with their new signing. Everything was going right for them. If Latte just off that volley scored that goal, man, things may have been different. That would have been. Oof, yeah. So just think about that, guy. If we scored that goal, even if we lose 1-2, that's still a pretty good indication, I think. So, he just dials in a little bit more later in the season. I think he scores that. So hopefully.
Yeah. The next question comes from Don't Lose When You Can Win, or Can Win, BG. But yes, he asks, are we more unhealthy than the average team, or do our backups suck more?
It's last verse, same as the first, right? Is that it seems like here we are again having a slew of injuries right in the beginning, this time right in the beginning of the season. Now we're hearing that TRA is injured as well with a hamstring, was it, I think, or quad? No, it was a quadricep, right? Just like Hernandez.
Yep.
And so we're starting to feel thin again in terms of having a lot of injuries, and that's obviously not good. So it's, I don't know what it means to say that we are more unhealthy. I don't know, we basically rinsed and refreshed with our medical staff and our training, and we have 5 new positions about trying to get player performance and health in, I don't know what it is at this point. So hopefully it stops here and we just cycle in healthier players and we can not have any more big injuries and we can be all right for at least a good run of, a course of things. But it's so annoying when you have 3-4 players that are starters or, guys you rely upon getting injuries.
Yeah, it's unluckiness. It's maybe there might be need for a little bit more recovery, maybe a more focus on it at times, possibly. I don't know. That's on the players. That's on the staff. But as far as our backups, I mean, that's the thing. You're pretty much going to your third choice at right back, and then I would say probably your third choice at left back as well, and probably second choice for your midfielder in Jay Fortune. I mean, yeah, you're kind of spreading yourself thin already, and then plus, of course, with the other players that are out as well. It's just, I think later on in the season, once we get these players a little bit more playing time, so they can get acclimated, so they can get, I think match fit, at least for the minutes that they're coming on. Well, then, yeah, it'll be a lot better in a sense that, once we put any of those players in, it won't be as big of a difference, perhaps. But still, there's going to be a market difference anyway from a starter to a bench player. But, hopefully other players have the same issues, or not players, other teams have the same issues. So,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure when Ronnie won the cup here with NYCFC, they didn't have a lot of injuries. Like, they ran that starting 11, like, week in, week out.
Yeah.
It was very, rinse and repeat. So, and Tata too, when he won the cup here, not a lot of injuries, especially to key players.
Yeah.
So, that's really, really essential. And if we see what happens when a team is torn apart through injuries, like half the team comes back from injury and then the other half is like, well, I haven't played with you in like forever. Now I got to there's a gelling period there. And by the time they're starting to gel, that other half seems like they're now injured. And then the other ones come back and replace them. And then they don't know how to gel with the original. It's just like, oh my God, it's just cycling over and over again.
Right. And it's like, once your depth is tested, well, the rest of your team feels that stress as well from having to play those extra minutes, and that just adds to the possibility of more injuries, and that's kind of the domino effect, unfortunately. But next question comes from Land Guy in ATL. Is there any indication that they are still looking to add anyone? Unfortunately, none. It's at this point, this is the roster until the next transfer window opens, probably. But obviously a more I guess experienced fullback that we were looking at probably would have been a good move, decently, if we had the money. I don't think we had the money to do that. So. Jair Ramondo asks, what is going on with Saba? He can't seem to make a good decision in the final third.
I mean, part of it is he's not used to these players he's playing with right now. Give him a little bit of time for that. And also, we know Saba is, at best, inconsistent. Some games he scores bangers and literally puts the team on his shoulders in really, situations that you don't expect him to, and it's been amazing to watch in some cases, but, he's been the difference maker. But then there's other games where he does what he does, in Charlotte, or, I mean, even in the first game, even though we scored 3 goals, a lot of what Saba did, I mean, he got the assist, but like a lot of what he did, he didn't pick his head up. He didn't look around because he wasn't understanding where these new players might be in relation to him during an attack. He might also be occupying similar spaces with some other players because he's not, I remember seeing like him and Almiron kind of like almost running into each other sometimes, but it eventually started to turn into, heel flicks that actually started looking really nice. But it takes a little bit of time of gelling and getting used to it. So once he's used to these new players and how, the high level of Almiron operates too, and Latte Lath, he's going to, be more impactful and more cohesive. But even when he's at his best, he's still an inconsistent player, and you will still see inconsistent performances from him.
Yeah, and I think he's not as accustomed to playing on the left wing. He definitely is more of a right winger. So he's kind of getting used to all of that, and then plus, yes, the positioning from the other players that essentially we're playing in very same zones for a lot of the players, where vertically and horizontally they need to be in different areas to really stretch out the defense. Because I think there's moments where they're almost marking each other.
Yeah. And Miguel's a wanderer. It's hard to keep track of him. Even when he's on your team. So,
Yeah. And I think at that point, Saba probably needs to find a little bit more just natural switching over to the right, where he's probably a little bit more comfortable as well. So, I think that's really where, he can still also use his left foot. Because, I think he got to the byline at least once in my recollection here. During the match versus Charlotte, but he uses his left foot, but the difficulty is, if he's on that left and he's putting in service, I don't know. It's just one of these things where, Saba, like we're saying, it's like he can frustrate you, but then he can also awe you, and it's just one of these where you take the good with the bad. But
also just to harp on something for a second. We scored a header in the first game, and all throughout preseason we were scoring headers. So that's definitely a kind of bread and butter of us producing goals right now. I was a little surprised we didn't see more threatening set pieces from us against Charlotte. I noticed during the game, I don't know what this was or whatever, but it seemed like a lot of our through balls, a lot of our, over the top kicks, a lot of our corner kicks or dead ball pieces, a lot of them were overcooked, undercooked, didn't go the direction they expected to go. You said it was very windy. It could absolutely have been a little bit of that. Or playing in a place that they're not used to playing, with some of the new guys. It really seemed to be like they just almost like the ball weighed different, right? Like they just didn't really connect with it and dial it in like they had at the bends. And I'm hoping that they could still be dangerous on set pieces, especially corners, because it was like seeing how many corner kicks went just way over the goal and way over everyone. Like, what a wasted opportunity.
It is, and I think maybe we do also need a little bit more creativity with how we set up these corners, so that it's not just you just pump it in and put it in the mixer. It's let's do some set plays. Obviously there are some ways that you can kind of bamboozle the defense, where you're not just all set up in the box, at the penalty spot, and it's just like, okay, we'll just lump it in and see what happens. I think there's some intentionality that you can do with these set pieces, but let's move on. Let's see. Flashmore04_ and Easton Ulseth1 ask kind of similar questions. How bad do we need our fullbacks here? What the hell happened to our fullbacks?
Injuries. Injuries. This seems to be the story last game to a degree. Just also Click just getting the flu with a late scratch. That was unfortunate. Flus can last like a week or so. It could get bad, so hopefully he recovers, but I heard he's not training right now, so that's a little concerning. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. But we need Amador back specifically in terms of goal creation, and Brooks Lennon would be great to have back just in terms of stretching the other team's defense, keeping them honest. Having another very speedy, willing engine would be huge. Ronald is fine, but he's not going to be that speedy engine. That's going to make defenses have to constantly keep looking over their shoulder, in addition to Miguel and Saba and Latte Lath. So, just adding more speed to that can only really help.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Basically, the players that we do have in the team right now as our fullbacks, they're still, one, learning the tricks of the trade, or two, has their limitations. So, not going to be a high-flying, bombing forward type of fullback as far as Abram. And then Edwards is kind of figuring out what Deila needs, which, yes, he did try to get forward a lot more in this match. But I think there are some... It's the being a little over-aggressive at times with the way he jumps out to a winger. It can kind of put him out, and that's not maybe something that... if he can shore that up a little bit more with his positioning, which with more playing, with that type of thing, that's how he can improve. But last question comes from Terminus United 83. Do we need a center back? I don't really think so, but
I don't think so. Williams and Stian are fantastic, and Abram in a pinch can do a job. So I think we're fine on center backs. And I mean, heck, we got Noah Cobb too, who's probably, in my estimation, and Efren Morales. I think those guys might actually be even better than Abram. So
yeah, it's just the lack of experience, and so that's why. And plus the wages. So that's probably why. But as far as center back core, it's pretty strong for MLS, I would say.
I mean, I was just thinking, like, that's why, so if a Cobb or Efren Morales makes a mistake, I'm like, well, yeah, they're young and inexperienced, but at least, they're giving it their all, and that's great. But when Abram makes those type of mistakes, I'm like, there's just no excuse. I'd rather have a young guy who could learn and get better, develop with these mistakes, versus like a guy who's just not gonna do anything. Like that would be my opinion. Put those, give them more of a show. But I get it, the wages. So that's just more of an argument for why he shouldn't be here. But
well, the wages, but also experience, and if he's just iced out without being given a chance, then that's just that's probably not the best management of players as well. Especially,
I mean, like, he gets beat in like every foot race he's in. It's just frustrating to watch sometimes.
Right. I mean, the positioning at times as well. I mean, it should be that at his age he should be able to read the game, at a better level. But this isn't a bash Luis Abram. Like, he's serviceable. He's very serviceable. It's just not a player that should be starting a ton of matches. But that does it for the mailbag, and it gets us to the match preview. 7:30 this Saturday at the Benz. We will be playing the New York Red Bulls. The last match that they played was a 2-0 win against Nashville SC. And we beat them in October on the 6th last year with a 2-1 win at the Benz, which, little collector's item there for sure. But, the last 6 for us against them, we won 2, drawn 1, they've won 3. So, that is pretty telling, I think, unfortunately, with the run of results against them. But the Red Bulls, they are some of the I think as far as the type of team they are, they're not maybe the high pressing team that they used to be, like so heavily in terms of like heavy metal pressing, that type of thing. But they are still, I think, from that standpoint, still very good. They've just added some other pieces as far as being a bit more of an attack-minded side versus just trying to create chaos up top. But Forsberg, of course, he's the main guy. But the key departures from last year with Manuel, Reyes, Tolkien, Banzier, they've added Bogas, they've added Choupo-Moting, Raheem Edwards, Hack, and then Tim Parker as well. He returns. They're definitely a side that is renewed a bit. But I think with Morgan, with Forsberg, they're the players that are the engine that keeps them going, that makes that attack hum. And the predictions across the league as far as pundits have them finishing as low as 10th, but that's just Osvaldo Alonso. Everybody else,
he's such a wild card with his predictions.
Yeah, he is. Which maybe there's biases because he's a former Atl Utd player. There's that too. There's possibly some I don't even know like what the word would be, but maybe some animosity from his time with Minnesota United and Seattle Sounders against New York Red Bulls. Who knows? But
every team has animosity with the Red Bulls.
Probably true. I mean, but yeah. So the pundits have them finishing pretty much around 5th or 7th, except for Matt Doyle, who's got them in 3rd. So yeah, Sandro Suarez is their head coach. Basically, as well, last season they were 7th in the Eastern Conference, and of course made the playoffs from that. But yeah,
made MLS Cup.
Yeah, made MLS Cup, exactly. And as far as their strengths, they are a team that create a good number of scoring chances, at least in the 2 matches that we've both played. They're pretty decent at defending the set pieces, but they're not great at finishing their scoring chances, and pretty weak as far as aerial duels and defending against through balls. So, yeah, definitely a team that takes a lot of shots. They not that aggressive like they have been in the past, like I mentioned. So, I think we have some opportunities to dominate in the air here because we've got those players that have the ability, but also that we. I think could, from our press, maybe cause some chaos at home. I think it'll be a little bit of a different story. But let's get into the odds. The home win percentage, at least according to Bet365, 46.5%. A draw at 32.3%. Away for New York Red Bulls, 27.8%. So definitely very interesting there. As far as the players that are out for Atl United, probably Pedro Amador still. He's going to get his match fitness. Brooks Lennon as well. Aiden Torres, but also Ronald Hernandez and Jamal Tiare. They both are out with quad injuries. So, yeah, I would imagine it might be a little bit more of the same in the back line. But let's get into it. Predicted starting 11. Guzan between the 6. Who are your fullbacks?
Stian Williams.
Fullbacks.
Oh, fullback. Sorry. Yeah, this is the hard one. So Ronald's out.
Are you sticking with Edwards?
It has to be Edwards again. Yeah, I think it has. I mean, he did a really good job. I don't think like I said earlier, I don't think he makes that mistake again or something like that again. I don't think that's like a super common thing. Yes, he's inexperienced, but once in a while that will happen. I don't think it'll be back to back. So I think it'd be safe to play him again. I think he'll be wanting to be hungry to erase that mistake. So I wouldn't be, I'd be partial to see him coming back out again. And on the other side,
Abram or Chunky?
Yeah, you know what? Abram didn't sell it for me. I mean, again, this is kind of like what I said about giving some younger guys a try over Abram. I mean, give Chunky a try. I mean, he seemed like he was hungry when he did get a couple of minutes in the last game. So, you know what? Abram I'm kind of over him. So, yeah, let's just, I'm okay with Dominic coming in there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was as bullish as you to pretty much play 2 homegrowns at fullback. I think we probably need to, unfortunately, play Abram. So I'm going with Edwards, Abram as fullbacks. Gregerson, Williams, yeah, that's the given there. In midfields, are you going to stick with Fortune if Click can't come in, or are you going to go with somebody else?
Yeah, I'm tempted to think if this is a game Tristan could affect in, as a starter. But I want a Johnny to continue in that role. So I guess I'll because I mean he didn't. This is a tough one. I could see it going either, but I'll pick a Johnny because I feel like I want to see him do well, but I'm not confident in that. I'm really not confident in that. Yeah, that worries me because it was such a. It was. I mean, the first half was great, but the second half was so. I mean, like I don't want that collapse to happen again. And if you have the same personnel, and we get dinged, that very much could happen again. So it's concerning.
Yeah, but it is a different opposition, and I think as far as solidity, we're at home. I mean, you might have a little bit too similar of players, a little bit with Schleich and Fortune there. I would probably play Muyumba.
I wouldn't hate it if Muyumba came out. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, he hasn't gotten a yellow card yet, right? So I give him a chance. So I wouldn't hate it if Muyumba was the selection there.
Yeah, and I think he plays a little bit better at home anyway, at least in the history of him playing for Atl United. But so going with Schleich, Muyumba, and then the wingers and the number 10, I think, choose themselves if everybody's healthy. So Almiron, Miranchuk, Saba, and then of course up top, I mean, without Jamal Tiare, I think as well, it's pretty obvious that it's going to be Latte Lath. So,
and it's going to be Togashi Cayman time.
Yes.
For this, if when he comes in. Yeah, I know. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because he's been scoring from headers. So you said that they could be hurt on set pieces from those types of plays. So hopefully, maybe he could make a really interesting debut at in an MLS match.
Yeah, I mean, so it very well could happen. But let's get into that score prediction. What do you got?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to be bullish every game this year because why not? So I'm going to say 3-1. I feel like I said 3-1 last time with the first game, so I'll say 3-1 again.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have this as a 2-2 draw. I think with the defense, it's just a little too makeshift. There will be goals, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get a winner in this one, just like the first match. I mean, Red Bulls are going to be a good attacking side, so they're going to be stretching us at times.
Yeah.
I think the question is... go ahead.
I feel like mentally wise, this is a important and huge game for the boys and Ronny to really stamp out a lot of what they saw against Charlotte. And this needs to be, a turning point of sorts. I know it's so early in the season to consider something like that, but I mean, think of it this way: you can't let this start to snowball. You can't let a pattern start to develop. You have to nip it in the bud, and I'm hoping that's what happens here. And a dominant 3-1, even if it's against a historically difficult opponent, there's no reason why we can't just figure it out and as a new-ish team just beat them.
Well, they'll have a little bit more continuity than we do, a little bit, but at least in the attack, the talent is there, and I think that's a big component, and that the crowd as well being able to influence, I think the proceedings as far as energy-wise. I think, I think you're hoping for any of it that's Atl United can supersede and power through, any of the obstacles that may arise from a leaky defense. But anyway, what's you guys' score prediction? Let us know. But that pretty much does it for the episode, except for the question of the day. The question of the day is: there's a number of people that are not sold on Miranchuk, but will he be the $12 million player that we bought him for on this team? Let us know in the comments below. Looking forward to what you have to say. But guys, that is the episode there and there. That is Michael. I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next video.